Do you guys ever wonder what the difference is between the various U-joints that you can buy at the auto parts store and wonder which part do I need? What size do I need? Is it going to be the right torque rating? How do I know which U-joint to buy? Well, stick around and we'll find out. A while back, I was working on an upgrade on my car where I needed to go from a smaller U-joint that I had on there to a large unit because of the drive shaft that I was putting in there. And I didn't really know anything about the sizes and what they meant. You know, different brands have different naming conventions. Spicer likes to put an X on their end of their part numbers. There's other part numbers where it's like a 0153 or 0213 or something like that. And then, but there's kind of this common number, this 1310, 1330, 1350. That kind of naming convention seems to be pretty consistent between the various brands. They have their own part numbers, but ultimately, if you were looking for a 1330 U-joint, you'd be able to get what you needed from whatever manufacturer you chose. What I've got here is just kind of a small representation of what you can get. There's various sizes. Well, the smallest one I have here is a 1310. And we'll go over why they call it that here in a second. But then I've got a 1330, a 1350, and then I've got one where it's got a 1310 on one side and a 1330 on the other side. And it allows you to kind of fit the difference between if you've got two different mating, yoke on your transmission is different from what's on your driveline or something like that. So. And then there's other sizes. I think there's you could put like a 1210 right here, a little bit smaller. Then there's like a 1410 and a 1480. Of course, then it can get really big from there when you start getting into big trucks and stuff like that. But for cars, these are kind of the main ones that you'd use. These 1310, 1330, 1350 are kind of the most common, most used units. So why do they call them that? Well, part of the reason, there's two things you go by. You go by the cap diameter and then the distance from one side of the cap to the other side. So from here to here is a range that you would measure, and then again the diameter. And that makes a big difference when you're trying to figure out what ones you need. For example, this 1310 has the same cap diameter as a 1330, but the distance is wider. Biggest reason why is this can take more torque, but that's another part of it. But you need to know the difference between those. And then if you went up to a 1350, it has a larger cap, but it's the same distance across, from left to right here. So you need to know those dimensions before you pick up the U-joint for your particular application. And then in this one here, this being a 1310 by 1330, it's the same size and distance across as a 1310 with the same cap size, but then you flip it around this way and it's a 1330. So those allows you to join those kind of scenarios like that. And then same thing with the 1210 or the 1410 or 14. They have a smaller cap size, larger cap size, different distance. And that's what you have to look for there. Also, you'll see what I've got here are these little spring clips that help hold these in place. And each one of these comes with their own. Some of them they even include the little Zerk fitting that you would put in here. These are already installed on these ones, but that's the difference between those. Another thing you can do is buy kinds with the grease fitting here on the body of the U-joint. Sometimes it's in the end. Sometimes it's a little easier when it's on the end there. Depending on what brand you get and what style you want, you can get ones that are pre-greased or ones that you need to add the grease to it. So you just kind of need to pay attention to that stuff when you're looking for your U-joint. So what's inside of these caps? What you've got here is a set of roller bearings or needle bearings inside here that just spin around this shaft, and this one's already pre-greased and it's got a little bit of a seal on here. And this is something you just want to make sure that everything looks good in there before you put it in the car. Everything's nice and lubed up, and we're going to want to hit that with some grease before we put it in the car. But this is there you go. This is just really how they come from the factory, and this is great because this is kind of set up and good to go and get you ready to put it in the car. And the same thing on this one here. This has a different seal on this end of this cap, but it's got that same needle bearing setup on the inside, and of course plenty of grease in there. And different brands are going to have different seals, a little bit different design, but ultimately it's going to be the distance across and the cap diameter that's going to be the same from one brand to the next for a given size. So in the drive shaft on my car, I've got it sitting over here, and we could take a look at the size that we would need. And if we look at this end here, we can measure across the end and find out what that distance is, and then we can measure the cap, and then I can head down to the store and get a new one if I needed to replace this. I believe this is a 1310, and I have one sitting right here, so that works out pretty good right there. That fits in there, and of course, these little spring clips here on the end. We just pop those out, knock this through, use the new clips, the new U-joint, and we're good to go. So guys, that's it. That's just a simple video on how to tell the difference between the various U-joints out there, what the part numbers are, and how to find out what size you need for your car. You can head into the parts store and tell them the sizes that you need, what you have. They'll be able to get you the right part, get you set up. If you guys like the video, give me a thumbs up. And if you subscribe, I appreciate it because it helps my channel out, and we'll see you in the next one.